All right, hello class. This is a solution to our week 4 in-class assignment. And first, what you want to do is you want to download the Word file that has all the instructions on it, as well as the Excel file, the source Excel file where you are going to complete the assignment. So let's start off by reading the project description. And the project description says that you're an account manager for Inland Jewelers, which is a regional company that makes custom class rings for graduating seniors. Your supervisor requested a workbook to report on new accounts created on payment plans. The report should provide details on total cost to the student as well as payment information. Each ring finance has a base price that can fluctuate based on ring personalization. And now before we jump into the actual steps, I just want to quickly look at the Excel file. So a couple things to take note of. We have a column here that has the students' names, the type of ring, more importantly, what sort of precious metal it's made out of. We'll be populating these cells with the cost. Uh, these cells describe whether the ring has been personalized or not, and here we'll total up the cost of the rings. The years are referring to the number of years over which the rings are financed, and here we have monthly payments for each student. Down here we have the ring type again, and the cost of each particular ring, as well as we have our personalizing surcharge, which is 5%, and the interest rate, which is set at 3% in this case. All right, so let's jump into our instructions here. We've done the downloading. All right, and step number 2 says insert a function in cell B2 to display the current date from your system. Okay, so cell B2 is here, and if you remember, the function for date was called today. As you can see, as soon as I start typing, the autocomplete kicks in and shows which potential functions I can use. So today is the function, and it contains the brackets which are necessary. Once you have that entered, simply hit enter and you should see today's date that's taken from your system. All right. Next question says, with B2 selected, set the width of the column B to auto fit. So for some of you, you might be seeing a whole bunch of pound signs like this. If that's the case, you want to go into Format here and select the auto fit column width, and that's going to increase the size of the column in order to see your full date. Alright, so that was step number 3. Step number 4 says insert a VLOOKUP function in cell C5 to display the ring cost for the first student. Okay, so C5 is here. And now, I don't know if you remember VLOOKUP. So our VLOOKUP function, which we learned in week 4, this is the actual function. And if you remember, it contains 3 required arguments and 1 optional argument. So again, the 3 required arguments were the lookup value, okay, the table array, and the column index number. And as you can see, the arguments are separated by commas. Okay, and finally, the optional argument is the range lookup. Okay, and here's an example of that. So let's try to enter that in our cell C5. All right, so as you know, actually let's use the insert function here. So we want to select VLOOKUP and hit OK. And again, here are arguments. The ones in bold are the required ones, and this one here is the optional one. So the first is the lookup value. Okay, and the lookup value is the type of ring. So that is cell B5. So we want to input B5 as our lookup value. Next, we want to select the table array. And the table array is down here. That's the table we want to select. So we want to select from A16 all the way to B19. Okay. And the other thing that's required here is to make sure that the cell referencing is absolute on the table array. Okay, so we want to hit F4, which will turn all these cell references in this table array into absolute cell referencing. And finally, we have our column index number, which refers to the two columns of the table array, and we want to draw the information from the second column. So because we want to draw the information from the second column, we simply enter 2. And finally, for our range lookup, which is again optional, but in this case we need to set range lookup, and it's by default set to true. We want to enter false for this one because we actually want the exact value. So when we take our lookup value here, which is silver, we actually want it to go to the table and look up the exact value of silver, not a range of things, simply because we're using a text string. So I'm going to put false for this one. Once you have all this in, hit OK, and that's our function up here. And the value you should see is 400. Okay, back to the instructions. We're on step 5. Step 5 says copy the formula from cells C5 to the range C6 to C11. Okay, so we grab our hold of the handle here and simply pull that down all the way to C11, and so you can see everything copied down. You can click on each one of the cells and you can see that the function has copied down. Okay, moving along. Number 6 says apply a counting number format to cell range C5 to C11. Okay, so again we want to select everything from C5 to C11, go up here under number and select the accounting format. Step 7. In step 7 it says insert an if function in cell E5 to calculate the total due. If the student has chosen to personalize the ring, there is an additional charge of 5% located in cell B21 that must be applied. If not, the student only pays the base price. Use appropriate relative and absolute cell references. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's go to our if function. And if you remember, the if function consists of the logical test. And if the logical test is true, then we apply this value. And if the logical test is false, we apply this value. Okay. So let's go back to our spreadsheet. And again, the instruction says it's cell E5. So E5. So this is where we want to enter all this. Okay, so we'll use our insert function again. I'm going to select F. Okay, and the logical test. So based on the instructions, again, if the student has chosen to personalize the ring, there is an additional charge of 5%, and that can be drawn from B21. And if the student did not, then the student simply pays the base price. Okay, so let's go back to our spreadsheet. So here under D, in column D, we have a range of cells called personalized, and that tells you whether the particular student chose to personalize or not to personalize their ring. So our logical test would be D5 equals yes. And again, you want to put the text string in quotes. Okay. So if this statement is true, if D5 does equal yes, then you want cell C5 plus C5 times B21. And what's happening here, so if the student decided to personalize the ring, you want to add the cost of the ring. You want to add the 5% to the cost of the ring, additional 5%. One more thing to point out here, that you want B21 to be an absolute cell reference. So we're going to hit F4 on this to make sure that it's only drawn from this field. All right, and for our value, if false, we're simply going to enter C5. So if the student chose not to personalize the ring, it's going to draw from this field. C5 got entered twice here. So all we want is C5. And again, if the student chose not to personalize, it's simply going to take the base cost. Okay, so once you have all this entered here, simply hit OK. And that should return $420, okay, because this particular person decided to personalize. Okay, we want to move on into step 8, which asks us to copy the formula from cell E5 to the range E6 through E11. So again, pull this down all the way to E11, and that's copied now. Step number 9 is again to apply the accounting number format to cells E5 through E11. So I'm going to highlight that again, go up here and select the accounting format. Step number 10, insert a function in cell G5 to calculate the first student's monthly payment using appropriate relative and absolute cell references. Okay, so G5. So in this case, we want to use the payment function. And if you remember, the payment function had 3 required arguments and 2 optional arguments. In this case, we're not going to use the optional arguments. We're simply going to focus on the 3 required ones. Okay, so let's go back to our spreadsheet here. And again, we're going to hit insert formula. And we're going to select payment function, hit OK. And the first field that's required is the rate. And if you remember, it's the rate is the interest rate divided by payment period. So our interest rate is in cell B22. Okay, that's the 3%. So we're going to enter B22. And the payment period is monthly, so it's simply divided by 12 because we have 12 months in the year. Okay. Again, here with the B22, you want to make that cell reference an absolute. So I'm going to hit F4 on that. Make sure it's absolute. Okay, so that's our rate field. Now the NPR field, again, that's total number of payment periods. So total number of payment periods in our case here is F5, which is the number of years that you're going to be paying this off for. And so we're going to enter F5 here, and you want to multiply that again by 12 because we're doing monthly payments, so there's 12 payments in a year. So the number of years times the number of payments, which is 12. And PV, which stands for present value of loan. And here we want to enter negative E5. And all that simply is the total cost right here. And the reason we're putting negative, so we use the negative sign to express the payment as a positive value because it's expressed as a debt, so it will be generally negative, so that's why we're putting the negative to make it positive in here. Alright, so once you have the rate, the NPR, and the PV, want to hit OK and move on to our next step on our instructions. Again, it's to copy the formulas from G5 to the range from G6 to G11. Okay, so again, we pull this down and it's all copied. Perfect. All right, step 12, again, apply the accounting, apply the accounting format to the range of cells. And step 13 is to calculate totals in cells C12, E12, and G12. So C12 first, we're going to apply our sum function in this case. Total it up, I'm going to hit OK, and it's suggesting that we total everything up from C5 to C11, and we're OK with that, so we're going to hit OK. Same thing here, I want to do sum, select sum, hit OK. Again, it's suggesting E5 to E11, which is what we want. Okay, and finally G12. Again, I want to sum that up. So sum, hit OK, and again it's G5 to G11, which is what we want. So we're going to hit OK. All right, perfect. We got all these in. Step 14 is to apply a counting number format to the cells that we just totaled up. So we can do that all in one step. Select C12 first, hold down Control, and click on E12 and then G12. And go up here, again select accounting, and it will be applied to all three cells. Step 15, it's asking to set 0.3 inch left and right margins and ensure that the page prints on only one page. Okay, so in order to do that, we have to go to our into our page layout tab, select margins, go into custom margins, and change the left to 0.3 as well as the right to 0.3, and then click the page tab and select fit to one page wide by one page tall. Once you have all that selected, hit OK, and then go back to the instructions. Step 16 asks to insert a footer with your name on the left side, the sheet name in the center, and the file name on the right side. So we're gonna expand this here under page, again under your page layout tab. You want to expand this page setup. You want to click on header and footer, select custom footer, and here you'll enter your name, in the center the sheet name, which you insert by clicking this button, and in the right section you want to enter the file name by clicking this button. Once you have all that done, simply hit OK, and then hit OK on this. Okay, so that's in there now. And finally, step 17 is to save and submit the file. So just to take a look what it would look like, that's our file here. We have all the values, we have the date, and we have the footer with your name, the sheet name, and the file name. Okay, so if you got all this, you can now upload it, and that's the solution to a week 4 in-class assignment. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching.